Hi, my name is Björn and this video is a walkthrough of the Pestilence rig, and you can download it for Autodesk Maya by clicking the link in the video description. I'll demo the rig and show you the different features. I'll start from the bottom up. So let's start with the feet. Right now it's in IK mode, so if we select the controller, we'll find different variables out on the right in the attribute editor. There's foot roll, which lifts the heel up, pivoting from the MTP joints. When it reaches a value of 50, it'll start counter-rotating. I can change when this starts by changing the foot roll start angle variable. Right now it's set to 50, but if I change it, I'll change when the foot starts counter-rotating from the tip of the foot. Under the foot roll, we have foot bank, which will bank the foot to the left or the right, pivoting from the edge of the foot on each side. Below that, we have tip roll, which pivots the whole foot from the tip of the foot. Underneath that, we have the tip twist, which twists the foot from the same pivot. You can also move the foot about using the foot tip controller. This will give you the same result. Heel roll rolls the heel, and heel twist twists the heel from the same pivot. Finally, heel tilt will tilt the heel, much like the foot bank, but this time it's from a central pivot point in the heel. The next feature in the leg we want to look at is the bendy legs attribute. This variable or attribute is just a toggle to turn on and off the visibility. So if I pose the leg, I can get some nice cartoony shapes just by translating and rotating these bendy leg controllers. It can also be really good for just getting the knee that tiny bit closer to where you want it to be without changing the actual pose or moving the IK controller. Next attribute we want to look at is also pretty straightforward. It's the FKIK pole vector parent. So I can change here whether or not the pole vector should be parented to the leg's IK controller or to the world. Okay, let's bring the leg back. This little arrow is a helper for when you place the foot and you want a bit of squash. So it has a limitation, but you can rotate it and translate it around the foot and place the squash wherever you want. So, moving on to the foot itself, we have standard FK controllers on each toe. If you select either of the controllers, you can see out in the attribute editor that you can change them to IK as well. The IK toe parent attribute simply is a parent switch. If you turn it off, you'll get a manual controller where you can place the IKs. If you have it on, it'll follow the foot. Now a few extra things on the foot controllers. There's a stretch leg scale. This is a simplified version of a stretchy leg. You can use this to overextend the length of the leg if needed in certain animation positions. It's very sensitive. The value 1 basically means 100%. If you increase it to 2, it will be double the length of the entire leg. If you set it to 0, it'll be 0. Under this attribute, you'll find the IK world switch. You can change the parent of the IK controller itself, setting it to world, spine, or pelvis. On the foot controller, you'll also find the FK-IK leg switch. Set it to 0 and the leg will go into FK mode. This works like any FK chain. Notice that the knee maintains volume as you bend it. This character has a few volume maintaining joints in the most critical places. Before we move up the character, let's have a look at the world controller. On here you'll find a toggle for the clothing and a toggle for the face geometry resolution. This basically turns on and off the eyebrow and eyelash geometry. Good. Now let's move on to the upper body. We have a pelvis controller and a sub-pelvis controller, or hip if you will. If we go around to the side, you can see as I rotate the pelvis, the tail follows along as parent constrained. I can change this by selecting any controller on the tail and switching tail space from local to world. Now it'll follow the world orientation and not the orientation of the hip. On the tail itself we have FK controllers and IK controllers. The IK controllers are sub-controllers of the FK controllers. You'll notice if we look at the tail from the top here that it's in splined mode. This means that it tries to auto-smooth in between the FK controllers. You can fix this by posing it more accurately with the IK controllers, or you can use the attribute splined, set it to 0 or in between if you feel that's better. This will change the mode from splined to complete FK mode. Lastly, on the tail, you can toggle the FK visibility as well as the IK controller visibility. On the spine we have some IK controllers as well as some very isolated IK controllers. You can use this for fine-tuning the spine, but really you probably want to use the main ones, including the chest controller and the chest subcontroller. On here you'll also find the breathe attribute and the breathe low attribute, respectively making a breathe movement in the top of the torso and one at the bottom, down by the abdomen. The belly muscles. Okay, if I twist the torso a bit, I can demonstrate something on the head. If I select any of the head controllers, I'll have a variety of attributes here. One of them is FKIK for the head, which will do exactly that. I can do the same for the neck, so that the head either follows the rotation of the body or the world. Now, another thing about this character worth noticing is that he has abdominal and exterior oblique muscles, but it's a joint-based setup, so it's much faster than the Maya muscles, and it helps maintain volume. Moving on to the IK hand, here we have some of the same attributes that we had in the foot or leg, including the FKIK pole vector switch and also the IK wrist parent. Here, for instance, since the torso is tilted, if I set it to FK clavicle, it'll follow the clavicle orientation and not the world as it was before. The fingers are very similar to the toes. We have FK setups here where we can bend the fingers. The only difference from the toes is that we have extra bendy controllers on the in-between joints between each finger knuckle. With that you can shape the hand a little more than you would otherwise be able to. You can also toggle this on and off, so you don't have to look at all those controllers if it's not your cup of tea. We also have the IK controllers for the fingers, same as the toes. Exactly the same. Another attribute on the wrist that we might want to look into is if I rotate the IK controller so the hand points upwards, I can select the wrist controller and toggle the wrist's IK-FK mode. Basically, if it's 1, it'll follow the IK controller, and if it's 0, it'll be oriented to world position. And as you can see now, I can move the IK arm around and rotate this without affecting the hand, so I can animate the hand separately. But the wrist is following the rotation and translation of the IK controller by default. So that's faster to work with. Next, on the arm we have the same thing as on the legs. These are the bendy controllers on the arm, and you can get some nice rounded cartoony shapes, or you can polish your silhouettes once the character's been posed. So that's pretty much the same as the leg. Now he has several twist joints down the arm, so if I take it to an extreme, like I can bring the arm up here and twist the wrist around, the whole forearm should twist with a nice fall off, and we shouldn't get any candy wrapping. I like to use the relax attribute on the hand for when I need to pose the hand quickly for a render or for testing. When you bend the elbow of the arm in either FK or IK mode, you'll notice that the bicep reacts. This feature is automated and driven by the orientation of the bone. If I rotate the clavicle in FK mode on the arm, you'll notice that the arm stays level. I can change this behavior by changing the FK arm shoulder blend. Setting this attribute to 1 will make the arm fully FK from the clavicle on instead of just from the shoulder. Okay, good, let's move on. This is the IKI controller, and so I can place it anywhere and I can change the parent so that it either follows the head or it follows the world position. You'll also notice underneath that attribute there's the upper fleshy eyes and the lower fleshy eyes. You can dial this in and out as you please. What it does is that it removes the effect from the rotation of the eye on the eyelids, upper and lower. There's also a switch to turn on the controllers if you want to animate this manually. It's off by default. You can also toggle the FKI controller visibility. Underneath that attribute, there's a rather special one. It's tongue V-shape. What it does is exactly what it says. So if I may demonstrate, I'll open the mouth and we have some standard FK controllers on the tongue. And so to add a little extra fidelity, there's a V shape added in there, just in case. If we move on to the eyebrows, there's 2 different methods of animating it. We can toggle the visibility for each switch down below face controls, manual brows and fast brows. If we start out with the fast brows, you'll have one controller which you can use to animate the entire brow. This is really quick if you want to pose the character and you're in a hurry. The second option is manual brows. This gives you a lot more control over the eyebrows, but you're going to have to shape it manually. There's also a blend shape to create wrinkles in the forehead that you can use. The remaining controls of the face control their respective parts of it. Some create wrinkles and a snarl, and others just control volumes of the face. You'll figure this out if you try and play around with them. The mouth controllers are pretty straightforward to use as well. They are simple translation controllers, and you can pose them pretty quickly, getting some nice shapes. On any of the face controllers you also have the option to blink the eyelids, upper and lower. There are several controllers on top of this that you can use to tweak the shape of the eyelids once you've posed them. You can also change the dilation level of the pupils and the iris. At the very bottom of the attribute list for the face controllers, you have face squash. This will give you 3 squash controllers which you can use to pose the face in post to give it some extra cartoony dynamics. That's it. Thanks for watching the demonstration and walkthrough of the Pestilence rig. If you haven't already, you can download it from the link in the video description. If you follow that link, you'll also find more resources and different rigs. Feel free to message Michelle from or me, or comment below if you have any questions. I'll be happy to answer them as soon as I can.